So will the repeal, now that we are seeing that, okay, Kenyans will still pay the older interest rate if you're serving a facility, however, moving forward with new interest rate caps, are we likely to see a high rise of non-performing loans, or we are likely to see Kenyans not taking up loans, or Kenyans are going to abide by their loans?
The issue of non-performing loans would probably arise on two fronts. One, if lending rates jump very high. If we see lending rates trending towards 20% or well over 20%, probably even 30%, then of course it means that a majority of these borrowers, even if their businesses might not be making margins or profit margins sufficient enough to be able to make profit after borrowing.
Okay.
So definitely that might compel them to get into trouble with their lending. But then the other thing also that might determine now the non-performing loans issue is the general state of the environment. If business conditions continue to be harsh, then of course it means whoever is borrowing is taking a very high risk at whatever rate, and they might not just be able to get to the term of their loan because of various factors in the market that might be beyond their control. As we've seen with these companies that have gone out of business, that are continuing to lay off people, that are experiencing difficult conditions. So by and large, it is also up to the government to ensure that the business environment is conducive, more friendlier, that also will inspire confidence. Because let's not forget, even before we come to lending rates or any other metrics, the key driving factor in an economy is confidence. Confidence by the consumer to be able to buy and do stuff, confidence by the business community so that they can actually be able to invest into the economy.
Okay.
Without confidence, and confidence draws from the general climate,
okay,
a favorable operating environment. Without that, then it won't matter what happens to the interest rate environment. We will not see the desired effect in terms of boosting the economy.
As we almost come to a close of this conversation, we want to play a bite by Honorable Jude Njomo, who is one of the people that sponsored the Finance Bill 2019 that also was prescribing a repeal of the interest rate cap. And he did not sound defeated, but he was like, this is where we are at. However, should anything change, Parliament still stands, and it's something we could revisit. Let's hear what he had to say.
We don't know what the banks are going to charge after this, because they say we are very risky, very, very risky. They could jump from 13% to 25% or to whatever they want, now that they will have the independence to do that. But I can tell them one thing, we are watching them very, very keenly. We know they have mistreated our people in the past. We know they have a high affinity of mistreating them again. And we know that we have a responsibility to protect our people. The law tells us that we cannot reintroduce this same law within a span of 6 months. But after 6 months, if we feel that the banks are overcharging our people, are mistreating our people, we shall revisit.
Okay? So how do we ensure we strike a balance between politics and economics? Because these two have to coexist. Yes. If members of parliament feel that their people are being exploited, then they'll go back to parliament. And this could become an in and out routine after every 6 months. So how do we ensure a correlation of the two to the benefit of the Kenyan and also the banks, because they're in business?
Wow, that's a bit of a challenging one, because again, when you say you're operating in a market economy or a free market economy,
yes,
then the normal assumption is that you're not supposed to interfere in the markets. So any attempt to control prices is normally regarded as trying to interfere in the market. But then again, I guess before we even get to that, we need to address one question, because whether you look at government securities or whether you look at rates on government securities or lending rates, why are interest rates high in countries like Kenya? And when you go to other countries, especially the developed world, right now they're actually struggling and they want to see how they can raise their rates, which is really it's a bit of a paradox. So you have people there borrowing at rates below 3%, 2%, very, very long term, as far as 30 years. And why is it that here we are struggling with our interest rates and they are always volatile? And I guess it all comes down to the economy, performance of the economy. So we have to ensure at least that the growth that we are seeing is inclusive, that it's well spread out, it's being felt. There's a general boost to majority of the population, lifting them up, and with the additional uplift, they're able to participate more in the economy. And of course, with less government borrowing, we have more money available for lending. And all this will continue driving the system. And the outcome might be much, much better than all these occasional threats by government, by so-and-so, consumers always complaining. 3 months, 6 months down the road, we'll probably be at the point where we are all pleading with the banks to lower their rates to spur lending, and we're back to where we were. So without that, really, the main structural reforms to ensure that the economy is performing well, it will be a very defeating game.
Finally, one might argue that banks are going to have a field day they're going to enjoy. But banks on the other side are saying, listen, we are not in the business of extorting Kenyans. We're just in the business of ensuring that we accord them the credit extension that they need to run their businesses. This is what Joshua Igara had to say on the matter of raising interest rates high.
We don't see a change in the rates, that are today existing for current customers. So I also want to just remove this view that banks are reckless, that tomorrow, let's assume that the cap was removed today, the banks are going to price 20% on their interest rates. I want to say that this is not something that will happen in our industry. The regime of the 20% interest rate is long gone.
30 seconds. The regime of the 20% interest rate is long gone. Your 2 cents. Will bank hold their word?
It's a double-edged sword. And in any market, it doesn't matter whether it's banking or any other market. There's such a thing as pricing yourself out of the market. If they raise, and don't forget, banking is a very, very competitive industry as it is. So if some banks decide to go back to the 20s or 30%, they will stand to lose. Why? Less people will go to them to borrow, and the ones that they lend to might end up not performing on their loans.
Okay.
So they have a commitment as well to ensure that rates are affordable so they can make money and reduce their non-performing loans.
Hold on to that thought. We want to take a short breather, but when we come back, we have so much more lined up for you on the other side. As you know, it's always time for Social Watch. My mic goes off and your voice comes on. Log on to social media at Metropole TVKE, @Ndiro Oganga, #Metropole Debrief, and tell us what your 2 cents are on the interest rate cap repeal. We'll see you shortly. Interesting conversation Isaac and I have been having during the break, but we can't loop you in on that because my mic is off and your voice is now on. Welcome to Social Watch, and we want to sample some of the feedback that you sent us on social media and some of the things that people had to say with regards to the repeal of the interest rate cap. So we want to cross over to Twitter now and just sample some of that feedback. How do Kenyans feel? What do they think about the repeal? Do they think it's a good thing? Do they think it's a bad thing? Or they're just nisawa too? So we cross over to Twitter now, the magic of social media. Abracadabra, say it with me so that maybe it might pop up. Okay, so as we fix our technology, let's cross over to a video comment, and we want to hear what they had to say with regards to the interest rate. Listening.
We remind the executive that it is not Father Christmas distributing money to every single project that people want. Then obviously we bring our debt under control, or rather the deficit under control, and that manages the debt, and at the same time send signals to the market that, look, you are not supposed to be lending to government, you're supposed to be lending to enterprises.
Well, about that by Kwame Owino saying the executive is not Father Christmas to be lending out to Kenyans. Isaac?
That's very true. I guess we have to look at the economic dynamics, and I think prudent borrowing or prudent economic management is really the way forward to avoid most of these problems that you're finding ourselves in.
Okay.
Yes.
Now let's take a look at a tweet also before we cross over to another video comment. At C. Rollins says, the thing is, we start by recalling those MPs who did not attend yesterday's passing of the interest rate cap. Let the media houses tell us how many MPs and their names who skipped the motion in parliament, and we deal with them huku mashinani. Yeah. Kenyans feel betrayed by the legislators who did not show up in numbers to achieve the 2/3 quorum that is needed to overturn the presidential memorandum.
I think there's a valid concern there because I guess these are the people's representatives, yeah, and they had a valid reason of supporting the people, or rather defending the people.
Okay.
But I guess also on the other side of it, you need to look at how they should have countered this particular situation. And just saying no perhaps was not a very, very good or, you know, a very convincing argument.
Yeah.
So we should have seen facts. We should have seen an attempt to look at modifying the rate capping in a way that would have, you know, striked a balance between banks and between borrowers, and would have left everybody at a fair ground, as opposed to just taking hardline positions. We don't want the rate cap, or we want the rate cap, but what is the solution apart from that? So those definitely some, you know, some solutions. The solutions were clearly lacking in that, and I guess that's why some decided to stay away.
Okay, let's take a look at another tweet here. At Waidash says, for small businesses to benefit from the removal of the interest rate cap, the government should reduce its appetite for domestic debt. Banks should now lend to SMEs who need credit through the risk-based lending regime.